Welcome back to the shop. I'm Sean, and this is not my typical woodworking video. Actually, it's not a woodworking video at all. I'm installing some EVA foam mat on my new Vibe kayak, and I'm going to share my process and show how easy it is to get a custom looking mat that does not cost $180 or more. So let's get started. The first thing I did was clean out any dirt or debris that I had with a tack cloth, and later on, before I put on the cut pieces, I'll wipe everything down with some alcohol. Now I'm going to make my patterns from blue masking tape. You don't need the super expensive stuff. I think this one roll is $6 or $7 from Lowe's, and I didn't even use the whole roll for what I am going to show here. As you will see throughout this process, I'm laying the tape right up to, and in some areas, over the curved areas of the kayak. I will go back after the tape is all laid out and mark the areas I'm going to trim off. As for the tape, as I install, I overlap the strips about 1/4 of the width of the tape, and then repeat the process to get between 2 to 3 layers of tape. I found this to be a good compromise between stiffness of the future pattern and the ability to easily cut the pattern out. My next obstacle was figuring out a way to accurately cut holes for the scuppers so they would be even around the recess and not the actual holes themselves, which are not centered within the recess. Here I'm trying to outline the edge of the recess so I could use a tape roll to center over the area and then trace the circle, but I realized I could not consistently get an even circle that was not off-center. So I started searching around the garage and found a spray paint lid that fit into the recess almost perfectly, and that my oil filter socket was a good size for the cutout. Now I just needed to get the spray paint lid to sit centered in the socket, and for that I just wrapped a bunch of tape around the lid so it would sit securely in the socket. I also trimmed the lid down so it would sit almost flush on the deck of the kayak. It's a good idea to cut some release in the tape to allow the circle jig to sit in the hole. Just use caution to not cut the plastic below. Then press in the circle jig and trace your circle. My next step is to create the shape of the pattern, and I don't want the edges of the mat to rest on the curved portion of the deck. So I'm using a couple pieces of wood that I cut to 3/8 inch thick as guides to rest against the walls of the footwells. And then that is what you rest the pen against to give you the offset that you want. This ensures me that the pattern will follow the lines of the area I'm creating the pattern for. Now, because this was my first time doing this, I wanted to cut the patterns out and put them back in place to make sure I was happy with how they looked. But now, being a lot more comfortable with trusting my process, I will not pre-cut the patterns. I will just apply the uncut pattern to the deck mat and cut the mat out from there. looking at the pattern in place, it may look a bit small, and it does. But I plan on cutting the deck mat so it has a nice bevel on the edge, so the actual mat will be about 1/8 inch or so wider. So let's speed this up and tape out the rest of the pattern, working my way around. And if you watch, you'll see the same methods I used for the footwell used for the rest of the patterns.
I go straight from the bank, gassing up the tank, cranking up the radio, playing old Hank. It ain't that long till I'm back at the pond. I'm rolling up the truck down at the dock. It's time to do some cruising, baby, get a little stuck. It's a Saturday joyride, Percy Priest is the spot to take the blues away. We're on a boat, we're feeling fine, drinking Tennessee whiskey, a big blue sky. We're going up, we're coming down. There's a party on the water.
Here you can see me using an additional piece of wood, one as an edge guide and one as the spacer to keep the same 3/8 inch gap from the edge. And then back to just one spacer to do the inside radius.
Feeling alright, it's a hell of a time. A hell of a time. Yeah, we're chilling out here, ladies in the rear, our feet in the water, top disappears, drinking Malibu Patron or a beer in a cup. Girl, I can hook you up. We all get to dance and I get to chancing, kissing that country girl, romancing, a whole lot of love, bumping out of the bar. Yeah, we're on.
The things I really like about doing things like this yourself is you're in control of how it looks. You can get as fancy or as simple as you want. If you want to add stripes, go for it. You want to add a logo or design, go for it. You can make this look however you want. If you mess a part up, redo it. The material is really not that expensive and you get a lot of it. So I encourage you to go out, get some tape, get a razor blade, try making your own patterns, see what you can come up with.
For a small town girl, so kiss me, darling.
If you notice here, I only drew the cutout for one of the recesses on this piece. My plan is to cut out this one and use that to transfer the same shape to the other side.
Yeah, now it's a hell. We're on a boat, we're feeling fine, drinking Tennessee whiskey, a big blue sky. We're going up, we're coming down. There's a party on the water, it's a hell of a time.
Now that you have a good idea of what I'm doing, let's speed this up a bit. No use beating a hooked fish. That's a saying, right? Well, it is now.
Feeling alright, it's a hell of a time. A hell of a time. It's a hell of a time. Oh, hell of a time.
Now that all the patterns are cut out and ready, it's time to cut out the mat. For this I wanted a finished look to the edges, and I made this simple tool to maintain a nice angle. You know what, let's bring that back and talk about the knife setup. Actually, let's go out to the garage and check the tool out itself. This tool is nothing more than a piece of scrap 1x2 that I had lying around. And to be honest, I'm not exactly sure what the angle is, I just eyeballed it on my bandsaw. So let's use this angle finder to see what it is. Be a surprise to you and me. Well, it looks like it's 22 degrees. As you can see here, the construction is just two small screws holding the XACTO blade onto the end. One through the hole in the blade, and one to keep the blade against the wood and to keep it from moving backwards. If you're going to make one of these tools, make sure you extend the XACTO blade far enough to cut all the way through the mat. You can kind of see throughout the video I'm using a piece of foam insulation from Lowe's as a backer to allow the knife to go beyond the back of the mat. This tool definitely helped cutting these mat shapes out. The wide wood allowed me to have more control for the round corners and the longer straight cuts. It also helped that I sanded the bottom surface smooth to help it glide over the mat. I highly recommend giving the areas you're going to apply the mat to a good wipe down to remove any oils or grease or, I don't know, fish guts that may have found their way onto the surface. For me, I just use some denatured alcohol, but you may want to check with your manufacturer to see what they suggest. Or don't. It doesn't really matter to me. I just cleaned it with alcohol. So now, just peel the backing off and lightly put it down to make sure it's in place. Then give it a good press, some nice rub in, maybe sing a little song. I'm just joking. Don't sing that song. That'd just be weird.
I've been down so long that my mind can't get no rest. No, no. I've been down so long that my mind can't get no rest. No, no. This ain't easy, darling, 'cause the devil's on my trail. I've been running so long that my feet don't work no more. Oh yeah. I've been running so long that my feet don't work no more. Oh no. It ain't easy, darling, when the devil's on my
As you can see, the final product turned out killer. I'm super happy with the quality of it, and this was a pretty fast process once I came up with my plan and figured out the tools I was going to use. All in all, the taping, the cutting, and the application was about 2.5 hours, and that's with me moving the camera around to get some good shots. So get out there, give it a go. In my opinion, the cost versus reward is definitely worth it. And I only used about 1/3 of the material I had, so now if something messes up, I can go back and recreate the piece or add more to this kayak or do someone else's kayak. So if you liked what you saw, hit the subscribe. I'm going to be doing more kayak stuff in the future along with more woodworking. Thank you, and thanks for watching.